Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, we're going to break down an important but understudied topic. What are the best keys from math rock and Midwest emo in standard tuning? So in this lesson, we're going to break down the advantages and disadvantages of several different keys, and also explain how I go about writing with key in mind. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, when it comes to thinking about key, there are several different things to think about. For example, we've got to consider the notes and chords from any given key, timbre, and also the relationship between the notes from a key and the notes that come from the open chord of the tuning, i.e. E, A, D, G, B, and E. So for myself, choosing a key has a lot to do with picking one that best utilizes the open notes in standard. And we want to do that as the open notes give us more options for techniques like tapping or pull-offs, and it also gives us big open chords and just more options for our bass lines. Therefore, a good key will be one that allows us to use as many notes diatonically from E, A, D, G, B, E as possible. However, if we want to get more sophisticated than this, then we should start thinking about the notes of E, A, D, G, B, and E as chord tones in chords that we potentially want to support. For instance, something that I've suggested in other videos is that math rock harmony tends to reside around the 4 chord. If this is the case, and we're using the 4 chord a lot, then something that we ought to consider when picking a key is that we should choose one where the 4 chord from that key actually shares chord tones from the open notes in the tuning. For example, in the key of G, the 4 chord is a C chord, and the open notes in the tuning can actually be thought of as chord tones or extensions to some kind of C chord. So for example, an E note would be the 3rd of a C chord, A would be a 6th, D would be the 9th, G would be the 5th, B would be the 7th, and E would be the 3rd again. With that being said, all of these open notes can help to support a 4 chord in the key of G, which is C, and that can help to bring out a more mathy sound. So with all of that out of the way now, let's extrapolate some of these ideas to some other keys. For our first key today, we've got E major, and this is one of my favorites as it's got chord tones from the 4 chord A in the lower register. Specifically, we've got the 5th in the form of E, and we've got the root, which is an A note. So for myself, I really like having the root of the 4 chord in the lower register as it can help to create some nice drones, and it can also really help to fill out riffs and create just a more full sound. For example, one thing that I like to do in the key of E is write a riff where I start with an open A note and just fill out some details behind it. When we have the open A note running, as I said before, it thickens the sound, but it also helps to continue to imply that 4 chord harmony that I really like. Moving on, when it comes to other chord tones from E, A, D, G, B, E, we've got the note B, which can act as the 9th of an A chord. So if we pair it with an A chord here, we can get some really nice arpeggios. And one thing that I really like to do is take a major 7 shape and then just add an open 9th to it. And you can also add the 5th as well in the upper register here too, giving a really nice twinkly sound. Finally, beyond just offering support to the 4 chord, the key of E also has some nice open chord shapes. I recommend checking out my video on 25 twinkly open chords if you haven't already. Alright, next up is the key of B, and its 4 chord is E. So this key is actually really similar to E major, but we have less chord tones available to us from the open tuning. However, we've got all of the chord tones in the right spots. Specifically, we've got the root of the 4 chord as the lowest string here, and we've got the 5th and the root again in the highest 2 strings. And as I said before with the key of E, it's really nice to have the root of the 4 chord in the lower register, as that can just help to fill out the lines and really continue to imply the harmony that we want. Moreover, another really cool thing about having the 4 chord's root in the bass is that this can create a very similar effect to writing in something like FAC-GCE. So in FAC-GCE, I like to write in the key of C, meaning that the 4 chord is F, and the first note in that tuning is an F note. So when I write a lot of stuff, we have this big open drone of the 4 chord's root. And since we've got the same thing happening here, we can kind of replicate that sound or effect. As for the upper register too, as I said before, we have the notes B and E, and so these can be added to most chords in the key to add some nice support to the sound. So while we don't have a lot of open notes, we can still get nice twinkly open chords going just by adding these 2 tones in. As to the downsides of B, it would be nice to have more open notes available from the tuning, but as I said before, you can add in these upper register open notes here, and that can help to still bring about some kind of open sounds. But yeah, it would be nice if there were more open chords that were kind of based around the middle registers too. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this key is more on the folky or Midwesty side of things, but I do think it's a great key for writing math rock in a more jazzy style. Alright, next up we've got the key of G major, and I touched on G a little bit before, but G is nice because all of the open notes are diatonic to the key of G. And as I said before too, all of these open notes support the 4 chord really nicely, acting as chord tones for that chord. Furthermore, G is really great for playing a lot of chords with open notes, and it's great for a lot of more noodly techniques like pull-offs, since we can pull off into any note that we want in this key and have it be diatonic. However, I do think that there's a little bit of a downside in that, unlike in the keys of E or in the key of B, we don't get the root of the 4 chord, C, in the lower register. Meaning we have to work a little harder to imply and support this sound in the key of G by having to hold down C notes when we're playing C chords or playing riffs based off the note C. That being said, though, as a positive to the lower register, it's actually really nice that we have the note A available to us. And the note A can act as the root of the 2 chord. So one thing that we can do is we can play the 4 chord, and then we can imply the sound of the 2 chord, which is also a really common chord that you're going to hear in math rock. So all in all, having this open A note to represent the 2 chord is a nice trade-off. And as a whole, I'd say G major is really solid, and it's a great key for writing stuff in the more Midwesty vein since we've got all of these notes available to us. Moving on, we've got the key of D, and the 4 chord is a G major chord. Moreover, all of the notes of the open tuning are available to use diatonically. In this key, when it comes to the notes in the lower register, just like with the key of G, we don't have the root of the 4 chord in the lower register. However, similarly, we actually have the root of the 2 chord in the lower register, and this is really nice as that's also a really math rocky sound. So something that's cool about having an E in the bass in this particular key is that you can actually add it to the structure of a G major 7 or G major 9 chord, and you can use that to actually create a big minor 9 chord or minor 11 chord. So if I take a G major 7 or major 9 chord, and then I put an E underneath it, then we get that sound, which is a pretty cool trade-off. Moreover, having the 4 chord in the bass just allows us to jump easily between playing the 4 chord and playing the 2 chord in our riffs and lines. Furthermore, when it comes to support from the 4 chord from the open notes, we've actually got a lot of nice support here. So the E will act as, I guess, a 6th if we want to treat it that way, or we can treat it as that minor 9 thing where it's the root of the minor 9. And the A note will act as the 9th, the D is the 5th, the G is the root, the B is the 3rd, and the E is a 6th again. So clearly lots of nice support here too. And again, just like with the key of G, this is a great tuning for writing noodly, Midwesty stuff, as we can use techniques that will pull off into open notes, and we've also got a lot of big open chord shapes. So yeah, if you want to write twinkly stuff, then writing in D is a good bet too. Alright, last up is the key of C, and its 4 chord is F. So just like with the keys of G and the keys of D, all of the notes, E, A, D, G, B, E, are diatonic to the key of C major. And with this key, we've got some nice support for the 4 chord. So the open E acts as the 7th, the A is the 3rd, the D is the 6th, the G is the 9th, the B would act as like a sharp 4 kind of Lydian sound, and finally the E again is the 7th. So just like with G and D, you can get a lot of noodly Midwest sounds too, since we've got all of these open note options. In addition to that too, one thing that I really like about C is that we can get some really nice timbres based on where the key notes are in certain registers. For example, the 4 chord's bass note, F, is available in the lowest register here, which is really nice as it helps to give us some really fat 4 chord sounds. And it's also available right here based off the A string in the middle of the neck, which can help lead to a nice resonant sound. Also, another great benefit of C is that C is the easiest to think about, as there are no sharps and flats. So if you're having trouble making theoretical calculations with chords and intervals and stuff like that, then I recommend playing in C, as it's the cleanest. As for downsides, the one thing I don't like about the key of C is kind of similar to what I don't like about the key of D and the key of G. We don't have great support for the 4 chord in the lower register. While we have an open E here, which is actually the 7th of an F chord, I find that it doesn't really sound that great, as it's kind of crunchy against the F. It would be better if we had the root. So for myself, I find that I don't actually use this open E against the F too much, since it's a little too dissonant for me. But that being said, this is a solid key for writing Midwesty stuff, as you've got all of the open notes for the open chord shapes and the pull-offs and tapping and stuff like that. And you've also got nice support for the 4 chord with things like the 9th degree being an open note, which is cool. And that'll help to support more jazzy sounding math rock if you're going for that kind of sound too. Alright folks, so there you have it. If you like this video, then please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as I put out a new video every single week. And if you want to support the channel, then please consider checking out my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you guys will have access to some bonus content like guitar tabs, lesson notes, chord diagrams, and other little goodies like that. And honestly, the Patreon page really helps me out, and it allows me to get some extra equipment to make these videos better. Finally, I also teach lessons through Skype. There's a link to my email address in the description below. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.